talk around motion control of biomimetic autonomous underwater vehicle. So Ahmed, Dr. Shemouri received his PhD degree in automatic control from Polytechnic Institute of Grenoble, France in 2005, and he's currently a senior researcher in automatic control and robotics for the French National Center for Scientific Research and Montpellier Laboratory of Computer Science, Robotics, and microelectronics. His research interests include nonlinear, adaptive, and robust predictive control and their applications in different fields of the robotics, such as humanoid robotics, underwater vehicle, and so on. He is then author of more than 185 scientific publications, including international journals, patents, book chapters, and international conferences. He is currently a senior member of IEEE and technical editor of journals such as IEEE Transaction on Mechatronics, associate editor for journal like Frontiers in Robotics and AI, and guest editor for several special issues. So without further ado, let's start the session, and I would like to invite Dr. Shemouri to deliver his talk. But dear Ahmed, we usually record this session upon your permission. If you don't mind, I start recording, and after that you can start your talk.
Yes, please, you can start recording. It's okay.
Yes, we usually record and later on publish in our YouTube channel. So this is what we had before. Okay, let's start recording. Okay, so the floor is yours, dear Ahmed.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for this introduction. And first of all, thank you very much for this invitation to give this webinar. So it's my pleasure to share with you today a part of my research activities. The topic of today, it concerns motion control of biomimetic autonomous underwater vehicles. This work has been done in a joint cooperation between our university, our research lab, and Taltech University, exactly at the Center for Biorobotics in Taltech University in Estonia. So first of all, before starting the heart of the topic of today, let me introduce our research lab. So it's situated in Montpellier. As you can see here, you have the map of France, and Montpellier is situated in the south of France. Beyond the fact that Montpellier is a very nice city, we have a lot of beaches. Montpellier is known by several things. Let me just introduce two or three things regarding Montpellier. So Montpellier, first of all, we have a very nice weather almost all the year. And according to the statistics, we have at least 300 sunny days per year. Then the second thing is that we have the Faculty of Medicine situated in Montpellier is the oldest faculty of medicine in Europe and maybe in the world. So it was founded around 1220. And Montpellier is seventh city of France, and we have a population of more than 300,000 people. And we have a big amount of this population are students. We have two big universities, and the number of students in the city are more than 70,000 students. Then now concerning our research lab, it's called LIRM, and LIRM is coming from Laboratory of Informatics, Robotics, and Microelectronics of Montpellier, situated in the north of the city. Here, as you can see on the left picture, we have the old building of the LIRM, and then just near this one, we constructed another building, which is here, you can see it on the right part of the slide. This is the new building of LIRM, so we have two buildings. And also we belong to two institutions as any research lab in the world. So LIRM belongs to the University of Montpellier, but also we have another institution which is called CNRS, and CNRS it's like a National Research, Scientific Research Council, and it's the biggest research institution in France and in Europe. So in our lab we are more than 440 people, and actually including permanent staff, it means like CNRS researchers and faculty members from the University of Montpellier. We have more than 170 PhD students and 60 people working in the administration. And as the name indicates, the lab is organized in three departments. So the first one is computer science, which is the biggest department of the lab, almost the half of the lab. And we have the department of robotics and the department of microelectronics. And concerning me, I'm working in the department of robotics. Now, let me introduce you before also starting the heart of the topic of today. Let me give you an overview about my research activities. Actually, what I'm doing is summarized here in the middle of this slide. So I am interested in control of complex robotic systems. And what you see around here are the main applications I'm interested in. So the first topic, I'm interested in control of parallel robots, or they are also called PKMs, and it's coming from parallel kinematic manipulators. What is a parallel kinematic manipulator? It's something like that, or like that, or like that. So these kind of robots, they are constructed based on closed kinematic chains. So we have here in the down part, we have the fixed base, and here we have the end effector or the moving platform of the robot. And then we have kinematic chains linking the fixed platform to the moving platform. And here on the left, you can see another example of parallel robots. These are called Delta Lake parallel robots or lightweight parallel robots, and mainly they are used for high-speed motions like food packaging, for instance. And the right picture here, it represents like a parallel robot with 6 legs, and these kind of robots, they are mainly used like for flight simulators or motion simulators in general. One of the main drawbacks of parallel robots is the workspace. For sure, since you have closed kinematic chains, so the moving platform will have a small workspace. And to avoid this problem of a small workspace, we can create parallel robots, but in this case, based on an actuation using cables, because the two first examples here shows you parallel robots using rigid links. However, we will replace the rigid links by cables, and we will control the cables to move the platform that is situated here in the middle, so we can have a huge or a big workspace of these parallel robots called cable-driven parallel robots. So this is the first application, and I am interested in control of this kind of robots. Why they are complex? Because a lot of reasons. One of the reasons, the small workspace, the closed kinematic chains that add a lot of constraints, the highly nonlinear dynamic model, the complexity of the model, the singularities. We have a lot of singularities in this kind of robots, and the control problem is very, very challenging. This is why I'm interested in this. The second topic I'm working on, it's the case of under-actuated robots. So in a robotic system, so it has a certain number of degrees of freedom and certain controls, a number of control inputs or molders. If the number of degrees of freedom is equal to the number of control inputs, we call it a fully actuated robot or robotic system. Now we have some cases or some robotic systems, they have less actuators than degrees of freedom, and the control problem becoming very challenging because these kind of systems, they have internal dynamics which is unstable, and this creates non-minimum phase nonlinear systems, and they are very challenging to be controlled. Here you have two examples of this under-actuated robotic system, the inertial wheel inverted pendulum and the butterfly robot. The third application, and this is the topic of today, it concerns marine robots in general, so surface vehicles and underwater vehicles. I'm interested mainly in control of classical propeller actuated underwater vehicles like this one, and also I am interested in the class of bio-inspired underwater vehicles, and especially we did a lot of applications where we control the vehicle to do a cooperation between the underwater vehicle and the diver. And this is the topic of the lecture of today. The fourth application I'm interested in. So a few years ago, I worked on control of humanoid robots, and the idea is to reproduce the human walking on a humanoid robot, and while managing the interaction between the robot and the ground, while managing the kind of the ground, the rough terrains, and so on. And recently, I have been started working on this kind of robots. It's the case of quadrupeds working in extreme conditions. Here, like for instance, the tasks of making this kind of robot walking in a muddy environment. And the last topic, it concerns control of wearable robots or exoskeletons. And also in terms of control, we have a lot of challenges, like we have to manage the interaction between the exoskeleton of the human. We have to manage the fact that the exoskeleton will be worn by a human that we don't know. We don't know here, as you can see, the mass of the leg, the inertia of the leg, the friction. We have a lot of parameters and a lot of changes, a lot of operating conditions that may change, and we have to take into account this in the control design. So whatever the control system we are interested in, for all those systems, we have a lot of challenges. This is why I am interested in control of this kind of systems. And also we try to find like advanced controllers to control this kind of systems. So starting from now, I focus on the topic of control of underwater vehicles, and specifically the case of bio-inspired underwater vehicles. And here is the outline of the rest of my presentation. So we will start with an introduction where I will introduce just very basic definitions of bio-inspired robotics, and then bio-inspired underwater robotics. Then I will introduce our underwater vehicle. Our vehicle is called UCAT. So I will explain from where UCAT has been designed, for which reason, which application, how UCAT is designed, the control system, the control inputs, the outputs, and the sensors and actuators, and for which kind of applications we developed UCAT. Then the last part, it concerns the proposed control solutions. Here I will focus on 5 of them. The first control scheme is called priority-based control. Before presenting this control scheme, I will explain why this priority-based control. What is the motivation behind developing this kind of controller? Then we will move to the second control scheme that we developed. It's called acoustic-based control, and here we will use a feedback coming from the hydrophones on UCAT to follow an acoustic system, a pinger, in real time, and we will explain how the controller was designed and how it works. The third control scheme, in this case, we used another sensor, which is the camera, and we designed a vision-based control. Also, I will explain and we show you a video how it works, this control scheme. The fourth control scheme, it concerns data fusion, because actually when we designed acoustic-based control, we noticed that we have some drawbacks and some limitations of this control scheme. Then when we designed also the vision-based control, we noticed also some drawbacks of this control scheme, and then we got the idea to combine both of them. This is why we called the proposed control scheme data fusion, where we did a data fusion between acoustic signals and images from the camera together in one control scheme. And then also we designed a deep learning scheme that has been used for a specific reason in the controller that I will explain. And the last control scheme, it concerns fault tolerant control. I will explain you. We supposed here that suppose that we have one of the actuators of the robot is not working, and instead of having 4 control inputs, we'd have 3 control inputs. And what would be the solution? So we propose the control scheme to manage this and the actuation coming from one of the control of the actuators not working after a failure. And then I will give a short conclusion of my lecture. So let's get started. First of all, let me introduce, as I told you, basic definitions. What is bio-inspired robotics? So bio-inspired robotics, it's very easy to be defined. So it's an interdisciplinary field between robotics and biology. And it includes mainly 2 broad areas. The first area is the area of biomimetics. and biorobotics modeling and analysis. So this is the first area, and this is the second area. Let me explain further these two areas. So concerning the biomimetics, what is the idea? The idea of biomimetics is to draw inspiration from biology. It means that we want to do the application of biological ideas and phenomena to resolve engineering problems in robotics. So this is the basic definition of the first area in bio-inspired robotics. And this area, it covers many technical aspects of bio-inspiration. So we can design, we can have bio-inspired design of our robot. We can have a motion control bio-inspired. We can have sensors which are bio-inspired, and we can have actuators also bio-inspired. So this is the first area. Now the second area. The second area, biorobotic modeling analysis. And the idea here is the application of robotic models and principles to address biological issues. Here is the inverse. We will apply robotic models and principles to address biological issues. Let me give you two examples to understand better. So imagine that you have a model for of a biomimetic robotic fish, and we can use this robotic fish to study the swimming of dynamics of real fish. So this is biorobotic modeling and analysis. Another case also, or another example, is to model the sensory motor control of human arm, for instance, using a bionic arm. So the tool here will be the bionic arm, and the idea is to model the sensory motor control of the human arm. So after presenting these two broad areas, let me now tell you further about the biomimetics. So biomimetics, it can be morphology, but not only. As you can see here, we can design bio-inspired walking robot, as you hear, inspired from the animals. This is an example of a quadruped. We have a lot of examples, like here, hopping robot. This is the real kangaroo, and this is the bio-inspired kangaroo. As you can see, we have the general morphology, which is bio-inspired, but not only. Not only, because actually the actuation system here in the kangaroo, it's based on the Achilles tendon, which is bio-inspired also. We have some animals without limbs, limbless animals. We have flying robots, as you can see here. This is a dragonfly, which is bio-inspired. We have soft robotics nowadays, which is very, very increasing in development, and we can see a lot of examples bio-inspired from insects and animals. And also we can have underwater bio-inspired vehicles. Let me now give a definition of these biomimetics. So as I told you, biomimetics is one of the fastest growing topics in robotics, and it includes various bio-inspired aspects. So we can design an underwater vehicle, we can design in general any robot, which is bio-inspired from design perspective or from design point of view. We can also have bio-inspired robot control, so the controller itself can be bio-inspired. We can design robots bio-inspired in terms of actuation, in terms of sensing, or the last example here, it's the locomotion. As you may know, for locomotion, we can have this very simple classification of bio-inspired locomotion. So in locomotion in general, we have terrestrial, we have aerial, and we have underwater. Let me introduce the three of them. First of all, for terrestrial locomotion, so the human created the wheel. As you can see here, some examples of the wheels. So we can use the wheel to move on the ground. However, if we are interested in bio-inspired locomotion, we will forget about the wheel. So in this case, we will replace the wheel by something else. We can replace the wheel by the legs, as like animals here, and we have legged robots. As you can see here, we have an example of a quadruped, so a robot with 4 legs inspired from quadrupeds or animal quadrupeds. We can have also a terrestrial locomotion based on limbless design. Here there is no limbs, and by undulation of the body of the snake here, or the snake robot here, you can have a motion of this locomotion. Let me now introduce the aerial case. For aerial locomotion, also the human created like propellers, like as you can see here, you have two examples. And when we are interested in bio-inspired aerial locomotion, we will forget both these classical propellers. And instead of these classical propellers, we will use flapping wings. Here you can see an example of a robot which is bio-inspired. And here, as you can see, the robot is equipped with two wings, and the idea is to control the motion of these two wings to control the motion of the body in the air to do a specific task. The last example that I may show here, it's for the case of today, underwater. For underwater, as I told you also, so human created propellers, as you can see, it's slightly different from the aerial propellers in the fact that you have here an envelope around the propeller, such that you will have a better efficiency of this propeller and a better generated thrust or force used to control the vehicle. And then depending on the underwater vehicle, we may have vehicles with one propeller, two propellers, six propellers, eight propellers, depending on the design of the vehicle itself. So if we are interested in bio-inspired underwater locomotion, in this case, we will not use this kind of propellers. And instead of this, we will focus on using something else. So if we see the sea animals, they are using fins. So in this case, for bio-inspired underwater locomotion, we'll use fins, and we will have two kinds of fins that I will detail in the following of the lecture. And here you have some examples of bio-inspired underwater robots. So after this short introduction, let me now introduce bio-inspired underwater robotics. And before introducing the bio-inspired underwater vehicles, let me just introduce to you this very simple classification. This is a classification of marine vehicles. So marine vehicles, we have here different kind of marine vehicles. Main of them, they are cited here. So the first class is the class of ROVs, and it's coming from remotely operated vehicles. And for this kind of vehicles, we have the control system that stay in the boat. So the human is manipulating the control system, and we have the underwater vehicle that will go diving to a certain depth. And then the key idea here is that there is a cable called also the umbilical. You can see here part of the cable here relating the underwater vehicle to the control system. So they are linked through this physical cable. And why we use this cable? We use this cable for two reasons. So the first reason, when you control, you compute the control actions, it is computed in this control system that is on the boat, and you have the human manipulating this control system, and the control actions are sent to the actuators of the underwater vehicle through this cable. So for one direction, we will send the control actions to the actuators or propellers of the underwater vehicle. And this umbilical, it's used for another reason also. And the underwater vehicle is equipped with several sensors, and to get the measurements from the sensors on board the vehicle, so we use this this cable also, or this umbilical. So this is the first class, and the challenges in terms of control of these underwater vehicles, actually they are controlled in open loop, because it's the human controlling the underwater vehicle, and he can see on the screen the feedback from the camera and the measurement from the sensors. And it's very complicated because actually of the cable, for instance, this umbilical. So if you want to do an operation at 2,000 meters of maximum depth, you need a cable of 2,000 meters of length, and it's very, very difficult to be managed because of the underwater disturbances, water currents, and so on and so on. We were in our works, we try to develop some autonomous controllers for these underwater vehicles. So the second class is the class of crawlers, and the difference between crawlers and the previous class of ROVs is that the crawlers, they are equipped with wheels, and they can be much more stable, because actually the ROVs, they are floating inside the water. However, for these crawlers, they are on the seafloor, so they will be much more stable, and they are mainly used for underwater manipulation. It's not only inspection, but underwater manipulation, like for pipeline installation, for instance. And the same as the previous class, we have this umbilical linking the underwater vehicle to the boat, to the control system. Then we have the third class now, is the class of the AUVs, coming from autonomous underwater vehicles, the name here. And these underwater vehicles, they are mainly fully autonomous. So they include the control system, system, the sensors, the actuators. Mainly, they have at least one propeller, and this propeller is used to control the motion of the vehicle. These kind of vehicles, they are very hard to be controlled because they are very underactuated, and also we have the problem of autonomy. You have two kind of autonomy. You have the decision autonomy, or the autonomy of decision, because the vehicle should do a fully autonomous task. And the second problem, or the second issue, is the energetical autonomy, because we have a battery on board, and the battery, you can use the battery just for a few hours, maybe 5, 6, 8 hours at maximum for this kind of vehicles. So to avoid this problem of autonomy, we can see the next class is class of the gliders, which is like the aerial gliders. You have an illustration of this video here. Here the idea is to reduce the energy consumption mainly. This is why mainly these gliders, they don't use a propeller, not classical motor, but use a ballast system. And they have the masses that can move from the rear of the vehicle to the front of the vehicle to change the center of the buoyancy. You change the orientation, then you dive by changing the buoyancy using this ballast system. You go to a certain depth, you take the measurement and so on, you go to the surface, and when you arrive to the surface, you can send the data through a satellite, as you can see on this illustration. And doing things like that, you can have gliders that may operate for several months of mission. So you can make a mission for even 6 or 8 months of mission, and they are mainly used for climate change studies, for instance, in the ocean. The next class is the class of ASVs, and these are the autonomous surface vehicles. The same, they are mainly underactuated. They have a propeller, they have also a control system to change the orientation of the vehicle, but they still underactuated. The good thing that is they stay on the surface. So their dynamic model is easier than the previous classes, and also it's because it has just 3 degrees of freedom, and also we can use renewable energy to charge the batteries. Also, we can use like solar cells, or we can use wind energy to recharge the batteries of this surface vehicle. And the last class, which is the topic of the lecture of today, is the class of bio-inspired underwater vehicle. So I will focus starting from now on this class of bio-inspired underwater vehicles. So to introduce the motivation, why we design bio-inspired underwater vehicles. So if we look to the previous classification here, most of the vehicles, they use classical propellers. However, if we look to the nature, here let me introduce you 4 examples. The first one is the sea turtle. The second one is the sea snakes. The third example is the manta ray. And the last one, flying fish. So if you look to the sea animals, no one of the sea animals, they are using propellers. So instead of propellers, as you can see, like the turtle, it uses 4 fins. By moving the 4 fins, as you can see how the turtle is moving inside water. So it can move in all the directions in 6 degrees of freedom. And even here you will see it will avoid the predator here. So she can change the motion abruptly, as you can see like that. Snake robots, by ondulation of the body, they can have a very smooth motion. They can go inside the confined environments. Here also the third example concerning the manta ray. Here the actuation, it's slightly different from the turtle because it's not using oscillating fins, but it's using undulating fins here in this case. And the last example, the flying fish, it uses like the fins for both for underwater and also for flying. And now the idea is why we don't design robots inspired from these sea animals. So let me introduce now basic definition of bio-inspired underwater vehicles. So a bio-inspired underwater robot, so it's a robot design based on biological ideas. So as I told you previously, it can be based on the design itself, the actuation system, the sensing system, and so on. And it is designed to address technological problems in robotics. So what are the main features of a bio-inspired underwater vehicle? First of all, bio-inspired underwater vehicles, they may have a bio-inspired shape. As you have seen some examples, the propulsion system or the actuation system also it can be bio-inspired. The sensing, the sensors, and we can find a lot of examples inspired from sea animals. sea animals, including fish, for instance, including turtles, for instance, including eels, jellyfish, snakes, crabs, and so on and so on. And some of them, like the snake robots, they are designed based on modular conception, and because it's easier in this case, you just construct a module and you duplicate this module, you connect all the modules, and then you control them to generate the motion of the underwater vehicle. Some potential applications where these bio-inspired underwater vehicles are used. Here are some examples, like for data collection. We want to measure the quality of water. We can use this kind of vehicles. Underwater pollution detection, for instance, in a pipeline, you want to find or to detect this pollution. They may be used also for video footage and inspection, monitoring, for instance, and also they can be used to study new sensing and actuation strategies. It means that you design a new actuation system and you want to study the effect of this actuation system, the performance, compare it with other propulsion or actuation systems, so you can design this or use these bio-inspired vehicles. If we want to do a classification, also a simple classification of bio-inspired underwater vehicles, here are the main classes. So the first class is the class of bio-inspired underwater vehicles. So they are using fins, however, they are using undulatory fins. As you can see here, you have this picture that shows you, for instance, the undulation. We have also all the examples here. So they are using these undulating fins. I will show you in the next slides a video where you can see how it works and how this undulation is generated and how it is used to push the vehicle in one direction or in another. The second class of bio-inspired underwater vehicles is the class of oscillatory fins. So in this case, like the turtle, for instance, here you have some examples. It has some fins. Here, this example, it has 4 fins, and we use here the oscillation. And if you have a body is oscillating, we have some parameters. The parameters of oscillation, it may be the amplitude, it may be the frequency of oscillation. So these are the parameters that can be used to control the motion of the vehicle itself. And then you have the choice between controlling either independently or synchronizing the motion of the fins, like the right side and the left side, depending on the task and depending on the trajectories that you want to follow. And sometimes we have other vehicles with more fins, like here with 6 fins, for instance. The next class of bio-inspired underwater vehicles is the class of legged underwater vehicles. So legged robots, so it means they are bio-inspired in design, since they are using the legs for locomotion. However, in this case, locomotion is not on the ground. It is inside the water on the sea floor, as you can see in this illustration. So we'll use the legs to move on the sea floor. And the fourth class of bio-inspired underwater vehicles is the class of snake-like or eel-like underwater vehicles. As you can see, they are designed like that. Here is an examples, and here, as you can see, different modules. All the modules are connected to each other and controlled to move in an underwater environment. And the last example, we have this example is the robot Ocean One, designed at Stanford University, and this is a human-like because it has the same morphology as the humanoid or humanoid robot or the human. So it has the head here, it has the body, and it has mainly 2 arms here, and the arms are used to manipulate objects here. And also this is a human-like bio-inspired underwater vehicle. So after this introduction of the main different classes of bio-inspired underwater vehicles, let me focus on the applications. And I'll just mention some of them because we have a lot of applications where we can use bio-inspired underwater vehicles. The first application, as you can see here, it's underwater archaeology. Underwater archaeology, it means that you have to go inside a shipwreck here or airplane wreck here, as you can see, inside water. So it's very challenging to do this task task because of a lot of challenges that I will explain later on, because actually in our vehicle UCAT, we are interested in this specific application. A second application, it can be a cooperation between the underwater vehicle, bio-inspired underwater vehicle, and a diver. It can be the cooperation or just simple following. So the diver is moving and the underwater vehicle should follow in real time the diver. So this is the second application. The third application, it's for fish monitoring and for aquaculture applications. For instance, here, as you can see, you have a population of fish, and you can have a lot of problems. Like one simple question that we may ask, how we can know the number of fish inside a specific area like this, how we can count. So counting the number of fish, this is a problem, and what we can use as a solution, an underwater bio-inspired underwater vehicle can be used, or to study the motion of the fish, for instance, with less disturbance of the fish. Maybe we can design a bio-inspired underwater vehicle, like a fish-like underwater vehicle. And the last application for military tasks or military applications, like military underwater surveillance, for instance, we can also use bio-inspired underwater vehicles. So after this introduction of the different applications, let me show you some examples. Some examples of existing bio-inspired underwater vehicles. As you can see, the first one is called Robotuna. Robotuna, it has like the morphology of the fish, as you can see, with the different fins and so on. And you have to notice here that the tail is flexible. And here tail is controlled to move to the right, to the left. And also something that we can see is the propeller at the end of the tail of this fish. The second example from Boston Dynamics is called Rex, and Rex, it's an underwater vehicle with 6 propellers, and the propellers here, it's not the classical propellers, but it uses 6 fins. The next one, Madeleine, is from Stanford University, the same as the previous one, and here, however, it uses 4 fins, and they are rigid fins, and the fins are controlled to control the motion of the underwater vehicle. The next one is called Galati from Technical University of Delft in the Netherlands, and this is what I explained to you before, the undulation fins. The fins are undulating like that, and then if you want to control the motion of the vehicle, you want to go faster or go slower and so on, you may change the parameter of this undulation. Here, the next one, Cepios, also from ETH, the same concept, and it uses 4 undulating fins. And as it will do the same, you want to go faster or slower, you can change the parameters of oscillation of these fins. It can be like the frequency of oscillation, or it can be also the amplitude. So these 2 parameters can be used to control the motion of the vehicle. The next one, RoboFish, here, as you can see, it's like Robotuna. It has the morphology of the fish. It has a tail. The tail is flexible also. It can move. It's controlled to move to the right and to the left to push the vehicle in the search direction. And then depending on the application, you may like put a camera here, for instance, to take pictures or take videos, for instance. And the next one is RoboCrab, and this is an amphibious underwater vehicle, because as you can see here, it is able to walk on the ground, and it is also able to swim or to dive inside water. This is why it is amphibious. And in terms of control, so in both mediums, it's not the same technique that we may use. Here, the last example, aqua jellyfish, aqua jelly from Festo. This is a bio-inspired underwater jellyfish. And as you can see, its actuation system is very simple. Here, an actuator that moves to the top and the down, moving the different fins of the vehicle to move inside water. Now, let me move to our underwater vehicle. So our underwater vehicle, as I told you, it's called UCAT, and UCAT was designed a few years ago at the Center for Biorobotics in Estonia at Caltech University within this European research project called AROSE. So the idea by designing UCAT, as you can see here, was mainly for the motivation behind this design. It's mainly for archaeological applications. So the idea is to go inside the shipwreck and take pictures, videos, and do the inspection of a shipwreck, for instance. So this is the main application of UCAT. So what means this? What are the consequences if you are interested in a shipwreck inspection? And what are the constraints that you have to take into account in the design and control of this underwater vehicle in its actuation system because of this specific application? I will say a few more details about this. So first of all, UCAT is bio-inspired. So we got it inspired from the turtle. As you can see, a turtle, it uses 4 fins as a propulsion system, and we want to do something bio-inspired like a turtle-like. So we don't want to use classical propellers for certain reasons that I will explain, and we designed UCAT, and this was the obtained result of the design. As you can see here in yellow, the body of the vehicle, and in the green parts are the fins of this underwater vehicle. And the fins are actuated by motors inside the vehicle, and then we control the oscillation of the fins to control the motion of the underwater vehicle. Some technical features of this underwater vehicle. First of all, as I told you, why we designed this vehicle, why we have been interested in controlling this vehicle. Mainly the application, the targeted application was underwater archaeology, and specifically we want to do inspection. So the robot is not equipped to do underwater manipulation. So it's equipped just to do underwater inspection. And mainly we can use like the camera or the video to identify objects of interest. In the design itself, as I told you, the constraints regarding this underwater archaeology application, we had a lot of constraints. And one of the constraints is the size of the underwater vehicle. So the vehicle should be small, because we have to go inside the shipwreck, so we have to go inside a confined environment, and we have to pay attention regarding this. So if you design a big underwater vehicle, it will not be possible to go inside the confined environment. This is the first reason. The second one, it should be highly maneuverable to change the direction, to change the orientation very quickly. So this is needed also for this kind of application. Then also another constraint regarding the design of the vehicle, it concerns the actuation system. And as you can see here, we don't want to use classical propellers. Why classical propellers like that are not needed or not good solution for this kind of application? Because they restrict the visibility near the bottom. And I will show you a video just to say concretely the difference between actuation based on a propeller and the actuation based on the fin like that in the next slides. The robot should have also a silent motion. So we don't want to disturb the sediments inside the shipwreck, for instance. I will show through the video this issue also. And the next constraint, we can design like a vehicle using based on the cable actuation, the umbilical. However, for the specific application where the robot should go inside the shipwreck, we don't want to use or design a tethered vehicle. We want an untethered vehicle, so without any cable linking the vehicle to the boat. And in this case, we have an AUV. It's an autonomous underwater vehicle, and it is fully embedded or fully autonomous. And in terms of actuation, so as I told you, we have 4 fins, the green parts here actuated by motors, and I will say give you more details about this in the next slides. Now let me introduce the actuation of and sensing of this underwater vehicle. So in terms of sensing, so the robot is equipped with 3 hydrophones. Why hydrophones? Hydrophones are used for underwater acoustic communication. And like for instance, I will show you some scenarios where we did acoustic-based control. So we used these 3 hydrophones to control the underwater vehicle. I will give you more details in the next slides. Then the vehicle is equipped with some distance sensors. It is equipped with a camera to take videos, pictures of objects of interest, and also different kind of sensors. Like we have the IMU. The IMU is the inertial measurement unit, and it's used to measure the orientation of the vehicle, roll, pitch, and yaw. And it is equipped also with other sensors, like for the depth, which is a state that we need to control, to measure in real time. So in this case, we use a pressure sensor to measure in real time the value or the position of the vehicle underwater, and other sensors like temperature or humidity sensors. And in terms of actuation, actually, we have 4DC brushless motors used here to actuate the four fins of the underwater vehicle. And we have also inside the vehicle a buoyancy control system. We can change the buoyancy to move, to go to the surface or to go down based on this buoyancy control. In the actual controllers that we proposed, we didn't use it yet, but the initial design of UCAT, so it includes this buoyancy control system. Now, what we have proposed as control solutions. Let me show you, first of all, some issues, some control issues. And first control issue, as I explained to you before, it's the issue of actuation of the system itself. We want to control some organs or control system in the vehicle. So we had the choice between using classical propellers like that or using fin like that. Let me show you our design, why we choose fins like that instead of classical propellers. And the video in question that we will show you here, it compares classical propellers to fins. Here we have another underwater vehicle, it's an ROV, and here it uses classical propellers, and we did this diving task near the harbor, and see here the sediments disturbance. So if you use a camera here, we cannot see anything. And this is very bad for underwater inspection based on a camera. And this is the reason why we don't use the classical propellers like that. And instead of this, we use fins. And here in this sequence here, as you can see, UCAT is diving here, and it's going very close to the bottom, to the seafloor here, and there is no sediments disturbance because of the motion of the fins here, which is not disturbing the sediments. And this is the first thing that you keep in mind. So we are using fins to avoid disturbing sediments, but not only, because we have other reasons also using fins because of the energy consumption. We never proved that this kind of underwater actuators is better in terms of energy than this one, but it's possible to prove this. So this is the control issue. Then the second control issue, it's the under actuation. Let me explain how UCAT works. Actually, UCAT works in this way. Here is an illustration for all degrees of freedom, the 6 degrees of freedom of this underwater vehicle. Here is the surge motion, the heave along the z-axis, y-axis, and yaw, roll, and pitch. If you want to move along the surge, you have just to orient the fins in this way, and then you have to control the motion of the fin. As I told you before, we have two parameters that can be used as a control input. First of all, you can use the amplitude of oscillation. If you increase the amplitude, you increase this thrust of this force pushing the robot in this direction, or you can use also the frequency of oscillation. So either the frequency or amplitude or both of them. And if you control this oscillation of the fins, you can move in this direction. And for all the other degrees of freedom, you can do the same. Just you have to care about the orientation of the fins and then control the oscillations of the fins, amplitude or frequency to move in this direction. But now the question that I may ask is the following. Controlling the vehicle in one direction, it seems to be very easy because you have just to care about the orientation of the fins and then control the fins to move in this direction. And the question that I may ask, how we can control 2 or 3 or 4 degrees of freedom, but at the same time, because here I illustrate you the control of each degree of freedom alone. If I want to control like the surge and the heave at the same time, how I will orient the fins and how I will control the fins to go in the good direction to follow the predefined trajectories. And this is a challenging control problem. The third control problem itself, it concerns the fins themselves, because actually a classical propeller, we can find in the literature a very nice model, precise model of these underwater propellers. However, for our case, using fins like that, so the model may be very difficult. And beyond the model of the vehicle itself, which is easy, we can find the model in the literature, in a textbook of marine robotics. We can find the model of an underwater body like that of the vehicle. However, the actuation itself using fins, it's very difficult. Very difficult, why? Because actually the fin itself, it's not rigid, it's flexible. And if you want to take in this flexibility to have a nice model which is precise and so on, you need to use, like, for instance, finite element method, for instance. But however, the consequence is you have a huge model, a very precise model, but in complexity it will be very huge, and it will be not possible to integrate this model in real time for the control of the vehicle. However, we can use a very simple model also by neglecting a lot of things, neglecting flexibility, for instance, and so on. You have a very simple model and it will be very performant. It will not be very performant. So the idea is to take a compromise between this complexity, where you have a very precise model, and a very low complexity. However, the model is not very precise. So we have to take this compromise. And the dynamic model can be written like that. Because here, as you can see, this is the thrust of the force generated by the propeller, or by the fin, and it depends on the amplitude. In our case, we want to use the amplitude as a control input. So what is the relationship between the generated thrust and the amplitude of the fin? We made some experiments and we get some measurement, as you can see through this first picture. In the blue curve here, it represents the mean value of the thrust generated by the fin for one fin, and we keep the frequency at 2 hertz, the frequency of oscillation, and the amplitude constant of 30 degrees. And we obtain this blue curve. This is the thrust generated by the fin. Now, if we want to study the effect of the two parameters, it means the amplitude and also the frequency, we did a lot of experiments in a tank like that, and this is the result. As you can see, when you increase the amplitude, the thrust will increase, as you can see here. However, it depends also on another parameter, which is the frequency. As you can see here, 0.5, and we increase until 2.6. So if you take the case that we studied here in the first curve, it's the red one here. It's the red curve here, the second one, the second graph, and we did this point here, 30 degrees of the amplitude, and the thrust, it was around 2 generated by this propeller, this fin. And however, now what is the compromise? We try to make some simplifications, and we try to make the dynamic model of the fin like that. So, and then we inverted this model, because actually when we control the vehicle, the control parameter is the amplitude. So we have to invert this relationship. And finally, after some simplifications, we obtained this model, which is inverted here, and it gives you the amplitude based on the desired force or the thrust by the fin. So it's a compromise. We make a lot of assumptions, and we arrive to this model that can be integrated in real time. So we used first this model, and then we worked on a more complex model that I will not present here. The fourth control issue here is the control mode, because the vehicle can be operated in two control modes. So the first control mode is called the hover mode. And the hover mode, as you can see, the orientation of the fins, it's like that. So we orient the vehicles to each other, and this is the front of the vehicle, the rear of the vehicle, and you orient them like that. We have a second control mode, which is called the cruise mode, and the orientation is different. As you can see, this is the front of the vehicle, the rear of the vehicle, and the fins are oriented like that. What is the difference between the two control modes? The cruise mode, it's used mainly to move for long distances, like for search. In this case, because the generated force is bigger, or the thrust, generated by all the fins, the rear fins and the front fins. However, for hover mode control, this mode, it's well suited if you want to stay around a specific position. You want to do like the dam inspection, for instance. You want to stay in front of the dam, for instance, to take a picture, a video, to take something, and you want to stay to stay stable around this position. In this case, the cruise mode is not possible, because this is designed for a continuous motion along the surge. However, for this one, we can stay around a specific position with precision. Now, in terms of control solutions, first of all, we designed several control solutions. We started by the control of 1 degree of freedom. We designed different controllers. As I told you, if you want to control just 1 degree of freedom, it's not very difficult. Then we tried to tackle with the problem of controlling more degrees of freedom. So we started by the priority-based control that enables to control 2 degrees of freedom or more. And then we tried to use the sensors on board the vehicle to control the vehicle as a feedback. So we used acoustic signals, vision-based signals, data fusion between them, and fault-oriented control by the end. We did another work, actually, which is under progress, where we are controlling all the 6 degrees of freedom. We did some simulations first to validate the control schemes in a simulator of a robot. Then we did experiments in a controlled environment in the pool, and then we did in open water different experiments. And here, just to show that the robot is human friendly, we organized a day for kids, and they were swimming near the robot without any security problems. Now, let me show you some of the experimental results that we obtained. First of all, this is the control of the vehicle using a joystick. This is an open loop control without any controller inside. It's just the human who is manipulating the joystick to control the motion of the vehicle. And here you will see an illustration of the different degrees of freedom, the motion, the different orientations, and how the vehicle is moving, and especially the consequence of this kind of control, this kind of open loop control. Look here, this camera is on board the vehicle, and when the vehicle is moving, you can see that the roll is not very stable. The roll is not very stable because a reason. Here in illustration of the different degrees of freedom, here we are moving along the y-axis. We change quickly, the orientation is highly maneuverable. Now we are rotating around the z-axis, for instance, by moving the fins of the vehicle, and we have different illustrations. Now, the problem of the roll, why the roll is moving like that, as you can see, because actually we have the fins, the right side, the left side fins. Here's, as you can see, the human using the joystick, controlling the vehicle, and you can see the obtained motion. And as I told you, the problem of the roll instability is coming from no synchronization we did between the right and left fins. So without any synchronization, the problem is we obtain a roll of the body of the vehicle which is not stable in the roll degree of freedom. Here you can see that the fins of the vehicle are flexible. As you can see, they are not rigid, so they are flexible, and this is the obtained motion. Nice. So after this open loop control, let me show you a closed loop control. We started with the control of 1 degree of freedom. As you can see here is the control of the depth, and we did the experiment in a swimming pool. And as you can see, the perfect motion of the vehicle vertically to the top and to down also, and by controlling the fins of the vehicle. And as you can see, the roll of the vehicle is very stable. And the reason behind this is that we did a synchronization between the right and the left fins of the vehicle. This is, we obtained this stable motion vertical. So after controlling the vehicle in 1 degree of freedom, so then we start doing experiments first in open water. So we did some experiments in Estonia here, as you can see, and you will see that the working conditions or operating conditions are much more challenges than the previous case in the swimming pool. As you have seen, the visibility, it was very good. However, here the visibility, as you can see, it's not so good. So we have different particles inside water, the visibility is not good, and so on. So we go from the surface to a certain desired depth. If you want to go down, you orient the fins in this direction and control the oscillation. If you want to go up, you have to orient the fins down like that. If you arrive to the desired depth, which is, it was like around 2 meters, so the orientation, it will be horizontal. Horizontal orientation fins means that the tracking error on the depth is near zero. Here we disturb the vehicle, you apply first external disturbance. Here the yellow part that you show here, the yellow cable, it's not umbilical, pay attention. It's just a wire without any electronics inside, no control signal, nothing. It's just to disturb the vehicle, the first reason, and the second reason to avoid losing the vehicle inside the lake where we did the experiments here. So we apply this disturbance here. It goes back around the desired value, and here it's just to show that the controller is able to reject this external disturbance. Now, priority-based control. We designed a controller that is summarized here. The basic idea is to do the co-control. It means that we enable the human to control certain degrees of freedom. In our case, it was the search here, X, and all the other degrees of freedom, they are controlled by a controller. And mainly 4 degrees of freedom, so the depth, measurement here to measure the depth, the IMU to measure the 3 angles, and we control desired depth and desired U. And what we added here in the controller, it's here. It's the key idea of this priority-based control. It's here. We used what we call membership. It's like in fuzzy logic membership functions, used here as weighting functions for the 2 degrees of freedom. I will show you the results. We understand why. Actually, we added the parameter alpha, and alpha is between 0 and 1. So if it is 0, it means that for the U and the depth, the value of alpha is near 1. If it is, and the value of the x, the weighting function for x for the search, it's almost 0. It means that we give more priority to the depth and the U. So if you want to give more priority to the search x, we have to choose a parameter near 1. And then we can switch between 0 and 1. We can take continue values between these two values. Now, this is the control scheme summarized here. And as you can see, the different blocks, the odometry node here, the IMU, the pressure sensor to get the measurements, the dynamic model is here, the controller is here, the control is designed here, the trajectory generator, and then the controller selection here that combines the control actions coming from the controller and the joystick from the human. We combine both of them, we add the saturations on the actuators, and then we do the priority management system here. And then we obtain, when we obtain the vector of the control inputs of dimension 6, then through the dash driver, we'll compute the control action on each of the 4 actuators of the system. And just the controller here, we use nonlinear feedback gains that are summarized here. The obtained results in a trajectory tracking, this is the trajectory tracking that we designed here, as you can see. So we did 3 control modes. The first one is the manual control. So we ask the human to follow this predefined trajectory approximately, and the human is manipulating everything. So here, the robot is manually controlled by the human. Then we try to reduce the intervention of the human. In this case, we add a depth autopilot. It means that the depth is controlled automatically, and the human, he is controlling just the U. And the last one is the depth and U autopilot, so both are automatically controlled. And as you can see, the tracking is much better in the third case for autonomous case. And this here, it shows like if we add or we don't add these priority functions, and without the priority function, the tracking error is worse than the case where we take them into account. Then acoustic-based control, the idea is to use the 3 hydrophones of the underwater vehicle to follow a pinger. We did different scenarios, a static pinger, then a moving pinger. We give the acoustic pinger to the diver will move, and based on this measurement, we try to follow the diver in real time. Let me show you the obtained results for this scenario. So here we ask UCAT to follow the diver. The diver is moving here. We use the measurement from this finger. It's the yellow part here held by the diver. And the diver is moving. And as you can see, UCAT is controlling the depth, the U on the surge to follow the diver in real time. So the diver is moving and UCAT is following the diver in real time, as you can see here, thanks to this feedback from this acoustic signal. So, however, what we noticed here is that the problem of precision of tracking, because we cannot have a good precision of tracking using this acoustic signal. Then we tried another measurement, which is the camera. And based on the camera, we designed a vision-based tracking controller. Here, the scenario, it's an underwater vehicle moving, and UCAT is using just the camera to follow this moving underwater vehicle. And the big challenge here, we need to keep the first vehicle, the target, inside the field of view of the camera. So, and the big challenge is the first vehicle is turning to the right or the left, we may lose it very easily from the field outside of the field of view of the camera, and in this case we cannot do anything. This is why we need to design a controller very reactive, such that when the first vehicle or the target start moving to the right or the left, we have to turn to the right or left quickly to avoid losing the target in real time, and we succeed to do this tracking. So it has a good performance in terms of precision, the camera. However, the problem is this: if it is outside of the field of view, or if the target is far away from the vehicle, or if the visibility is not good, the camera is not suitable. Then we designed the data fusion controller, and here we tested using both. It means that if we can see the target in the field of view of the camera, we'll use both. So the acoustic signal coming from the pinger and the camera. If the target is outside field of view or far away, or the visibility is not good, we'll rely only on the pinger, the acoustic signal. And then you can switch between them depending on the situation in real time. Here we tried the following We try to follow the diver, as you can see, and once the diver is outside the field of view of the camera, we stop the experiments because we cannot continue. We don't have any further information. So this is the visual tracking. So the first scenario. And then we try another scenario where we use, in this case, the acoustic signal. And for the acoustic tracking, acoustic signal, we try two possibilities. First thing, we hold here the finger in a fixed position. We start from this position here and try to move towards the finger. The good thing that is we can reach the finger. This is nice. And any problem of visibility is not an issue because we don't use this. However, we have a problem of precision. When we reach the finger, we continue turning around. We cannot have a precision of position based on this feedback. And here, data fusion, we use the camera and the finger together to reach this target. And here, the precision of tracking is good, and the finger is static. And the last scenario, we try to now to validate on a cooperation between UCAT and the diver. And in this case, we ask the diver to move inside water, and UCAT, depending on the measurement that he can get from the sensors, he will decide. Okay, I can see the diver, I will use both the camera and the finger. I cannot see the diver, it is far away, he is far away, or the visibility is not good. In this case, I will use the finger only, the acoustic signal. And I continue screening the camera or the images until I can detect the diver. Once I detect the diver, I will switch to a control combining both the finger and the camera. And now the question that you may ask, I told you that you use deep learning. Where we use the deep learning? The deep learning, actually, we used it in the detection of the diver. So here it's the tracking of the diver in real time, as you can see, and it's working very well. And the last scenario here is fault-oriented control. So what we did in this work is we suppose that one of the fins is not working. We stop one of the motors and we keep just three working, and we try to follow elliptical trajectory like that here. We combine the PID controller and the sliding mode controller. Here, just one information regarding the tags that you can see in the bottom of the pool here. They are used to measure or to localize X and Y. So the surge and the sway, the position in X and Y of the robot. This is why we use this tags here and the camera of the vehicle, so we can know the position XY of the vehicle. The depth and the three angles are measured by using the pressure sensor and also the IMU. And here we do the tracking. Now for control allocation with the PID, here it depends on which fin is faulty. Here, like the rear left, the rear right, the front left, front right, and you can see we repeat the same scenario of tracking. And look, for instance, if you take this scenario, it's not working at all because we ask the robot to follow this elliptical trajectory, but it stays in the middle. So it's not possible to control the vehicle. It's very challenging. And this is using the PID controller. And then we repeat also the four scenarios now using the sliding mode control. And we will show that here we're using sliding mode control. So the obtained performance is much better than the previous case with the PID. As you can see, even the fourth case, the tracking is not perfect, but it's still working better than PID. That's all. Now let me just conclude the presentation of today. So I tried to present today the control problem concerning biomimetic underwater vehicles. I introduced the general context for the application that targeted in our study, which is underwater archaeology for inspection applications. I introduced different challenges in terms of design of the vehicle and also in terms of control. And they show you some proposed control solutions depending on the control itself and depending on the feedback that we are using, if it is the camera or the finger or something else. We validate in simulations, but much more in real-time experiments in a controlled environment in the lab and also in open water. And we validate all the controllers on the UCAT underwater vehicle. And to finish, I want just to thank my colleagues from the Center for Biorobotics in TalTech University in Estonia. So Professor Maria Krusma and all the students who worked on this topic, but I give you some useful links. So all of our papers are available online, the preprint of the papers on ResearchGate. If you want to see more videos, I have a YouTube channel. You can find a lot of videos about our experiments in underwater robotics, but in our other kind of robotic systems also. Let me stop here and let me thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, dear Ahmed, for your very interesting, insightful, and informative, presentation. We enjoyed a lot. So you started from very basic background toward the advanced application in marine domain. So let us ask our participants and audience if there is any question. Please feel free to ask from Ahmed.
Please.
Any question?
Any feedback, any comment, any question, please.
Okay, let me start, Ahmed. My first question is about the operating range of this UCAT in terms of the depth, battery, and specifically in the sea trial. Can you give us more information?
Yes. You are talking about the maximum depth or
Yes,
autonomy?
maximum depth and battery, for example, durability in the field trial, something like that.
Exactly. So actually, as I told you, the vehicle was designed for underwater archaeology. So the idea is to go inside the shipwreck. We did some experiments where we go up to like between 10 and 15 meters of maximum depth to go inside the shipwreck. Actually, the design itself, so it depends on the components of the robot. And I think it can go up to around 100 meters of maximum depth. I don't know exactly the value, but we did experiment up to between 15 and 20 meters of maximum depth, but the robot can go beyond this value. I think that we can go up to 100 meters of maximum depth. In terms of autonomy, so it's, as I told you, it's an AUV, so it's equipped with the batteries, and we did a lot of experiments either in the pool or in the sea, depending on the situation, depending on the scenario that you want to do, depending on the difficulty, if there is external disturbances, underwater currents, and so on. But mainly the average of using the vehicle, it's few hours only. So it's very limited. Like I remember when we go to the pool to do the experiments, we book the pool for the whole day, but the batteries can be used for half day. So the autonomy, it's like maybe 3-4 hours maximum, depending on how we use the vehicle, and not more. So a few hours only, and then we have to recharge the batteries to continue the afternoon. This is the question regarding the autonomy.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comprehensive answer. My second question is about the UCAT itself. Has it already commercialized, or it's on the stage of prototyping and testing?
Very good question. Now it's not commercialized yet. It stay in the lab. If we can find good industrials interested, why not? But up to now, it's not commercialized yet. However, we did different versions of UCAT. Maybe I can show you just one short video that shows you the first version of UCAT. If I can find it, where is it? Or maybe, let me try something. Oh, sorry. So we constructed the small version with reduced sensors and actuators. It was just a demonstration that it works using the fins and how we control the motion of the fins. So where is it? Yes, it's here. Yeah, this is the video. So we construct first this version. We try to see how it works. Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I'm watching that.
A smaller version, okay? And we use for teaching in Estonia, teaching like programming robots, also ROS, because the robot is controlled using ROS. So So we designed this first, and we do not have here all the components of the robot, like the buoyancy control is not here, like the camera is not here. It's just a very basic design to show the working system. And then after that, we designed the real one, the B, which is bigger. As I told you, we designed the first version, and recently, like maybe 2 years ago, we updated the vehicles in terms of software, in terms of sensing. Actually, we add DVL. Now the vehicle is equipped with a DVL, because originally the idea of designing UCAT was to design something which is low cost comparing to expensive vehicles, and this is why we try to limit the material used in the vehicle. After that, we, for certain reasons, we added like a DVL just to explore other control schemes and also other measurement devices.
Okay,
but up to
I
now,
see.
to go back to the question, up to now, it's not commercialized yet. So it's still in the lab.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answer. Let me ask again, if there is any question with you, please feel free to open your mic and ask from Ahmed. Think yes. Any question, Mr. B? I think he has already opened the mic. We cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Or he can write the question and
yes, we can hear you. Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, just microphone setting. So I just got a question about the deep learning part, because I think you mentioned that you use that to track the diver. So, but that one is pretty quick. So is there like any more details of that part you can share?
Very nice question. Yes, I didn't introduce details here. As I told you, the idea is to track the diver. And first of all, we use experiment with the pinger alone, and we detect the pinger. It's very easy to detect the pinger. However, the diver, it's difficult to detect. So we didn't develop a new deep learning algorithm. We use existing deep learning algorithm to detect the diver. So, and it's a neural network. And what we did, I remember when we did the experiments for this control scheme, I remember the PhD student who implemented this. So he downloaded a lot of videos of divers on the net. So he downloaded a lot of videos. And what he did the training of the network using these videos. And then in the morning, when he leave the network working all the night, like maybe 10 hours of training. And in the morning, we take this trained neural network and we test it in real conditions. And it was really fantastic because it was working. So if you want to know more about what we use exactly as a deep learning technique, what are the details, what are the parameters, and so on. So I invite you just to have a look to this paper. So our paper published in Journal of Field Robotics. You have here the details, the title, everything. And the paper can be downloaded on ResearchGate if you want. If you have a trouble downloading the paper or find it, just send me an email. I will send you the paper in question. So please have a look to the paper, and here you can find all the details about the deep learning part that we used here in our case. Here what I show you, it's just a video that summarizes the final result, because the diver, as you can see, is moving and the UCAT is following the diver. And here in this scenario, the bad thing is that the conditions, because the visibility was not so good. I mean, if the diver is at least like at 1 meter or 2 meters, it's okay. We can see the diver in the field of view of the camera. But however, if the diver is at 3 meters, we cannot see the diver. This is the big problem. And the training algorithm, this deep learning algorithm, is active all the time, in real time, and it screens the camera, the pictures from the camera, the images, and train. Once the algorithm see a diver in the field of view, he say, oh, it's a diver. And automatically, the controller will switch to the configuration where we use both. So the pinger, the acoustic signal, and also the images of the diver. And he tried to follow the diver. If the diver turns to the right, to the left, or go away, we will forget the diver. We'll switch to the case where we rely 100% on the signal coming from the acoustic pinger. Oh, that's it. Is it clear?
Yep. Yeah, it's
Okay.
more clear. Yeah, thank you. I will go through the paper. Yeah, thanks.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, dear Ahmed. Is there any more question? Okay, let's conclude this session. First of all, again, thank you, dear Ahmed, for accepting our invitation and delivering such an interesting, insightful talk. We hope to see you in our near future webinar again or conference that IES is organizing and sponsoring. And thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar, and have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
You too. Thank you. Take care.